One and happy June. We're gonna get started. Okay. So Alana, I asked Alana to read the vision and mission.
The vision of the Early Learning Board is creating a sustainable early learning system that partners with families to ensure that every child is healthy, valued, and successful in school and life. The mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry.
Mahalo. Announcements. Again, just a reminder that Thursday, September 11th, we'll have an all-day meeting in person. Excuse me. And in the morning, we'll be discussing the state plan, and then we'll have our board meeting in the afternoon. And I want to say aloha and welcome to Disa Haugi from the Department of Education, Nanakuli Waianae Complex Area Superintendent. So she is joining us today. So mahalo and welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Okay. It would be nice to see you in person. And she and I have been trying to connect by Zoom, and I just messed up my scheduling, but we are going to connect. Okay, and then ex-official board member changes. Today is the last board meeting for Dr. Phil Bossert, who is retiring.
Thank you.
And I just learned he's moving with his wife to Singapore. So he's got an exciting retirement coming up. So, you know, he's been with us for the last year, so thank you very much. And Deanna Dollier is going to be joining us next month. So thank you so much. We'll miss you. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then next month, we'll have 3 new ex-official members. Deanna from Hawaii Association of Independent Schools, and Dr. Ephraim Schwab, who is here in the room. He is the Head Start Collaboration Office Director, and also Head Start Association President Ben Naki. Ben, are you online? Not yet? Okay. Well, he's not here today, that's fine. Next month, you need to be here. Okay. Okay, next is the minutes. So mahalo again to Tara for doing the minutes. And wait, did I take roll call? Did I forget that? I think I did, Jeff. Okay. Can I blame it on airplane? Brain? Yeah, let me take roll call first, please. Alana Souza,
Aye.
Kau'i Burgess,
Ew.
Cheryl Kudiaman, here. Soma Gandhi,
Aye.
Lindsay Heathcock. Lindsay, let me know if Lindsay comes on. Joni Onishi.
Here.
Hey, I know Stephanie can't be here today, and I'm here, so we still have quorum. And for our, excuse me, ex-official members, Dana Luca.
Present.
Okay, and I know Disa Augie is here. Dr. Phil Bossert. We're here. Napua Rosehill.
Yo.
Stephen Schatz. Representing you. Okay. And Keiko Nita is here for Dr. Mitchell. Okay. Okay. Now we can do the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? In chat. Hearing none. And someone move to accept the minutes as presented.
This is Joni. I move to approve as presented.
Okay, Mahalo, moved by Joni. Can we get a second?
I'll second. This is Ko-E Burgess.
Cody. Okay. Any other questions or comments before I take a vote? Okay. Hearing none, we'll vote. Alana Souza,
Aye.
Cody Burgess,
Aye.
Cheryl Kudiyama,
Aye.
Suma Gandhi,
Aye.
Joni Onishi.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes pass as presented. Mahalo. Any comments from the public on the minutes? Okay, we'll go on. And it's Nicole and her staff. Let me stop sharing. If I can figure that out. Did I stop sharing? Jennifer? No. Not yet, okay. Zoom, hello. Oh, here, now I see it. Okay, okay, there's Nicole.
Hi, everybody. ELB updates and our portion for June are predominantly going to be taking a look at where we are with the Senate concurrent resolution and taking a look at the roadmap that was created back in 2023. So when we look at the roadmap, action item number 1 was addressing the workforce development and support. Action item number 2 was on facilities. Action item number 3 was on funding for the early care and education mixed delivery system. And action item number 4 was on program quality improvement and maintenance. And so we wanted to highlight some celebrations that came as a direct result of items that were requested and suggested in the roadmap. So for addressing the workforce development and support, these are going to be things that have actually been achieved over the last couple of years that were directly identified in the roadmap. So the permanent exemption of requirements of standards and assessments, performance ratings, staff qualifications, and training for Hilo Hawaiian language programs as was requested. We explored compensation approaches during the legislative sessions, funded the ECE stipend program, expanded support and usage of apprenticeships and internships, and supported legislative approaches to increase the base budget. Other celebrations for facilities were we identified, examined, and evaluated current provider capacity to understand Ohana demand and facility usage. We've been coordinating and cooperating with the School Facilities Authority. We've explored county and state spaces for early childhood education facility expansion to also include EOEL now being able to contract spaces that are not on DOE property and supporting the expansion of EOEL public pre-K facilities requests. And just so you know, I'm coughing, my asthma is acting up. I'm not sick. Okay, so I'm taking these things here, but I might cough, but I'm not sick. So funding for their early care and education mixed delivery system. So we explored the implementation of other childcare models supported and administered by other states. So for example, some states are looking into family childcare as part of their public pre-K systems. Coordinating and cooperating with SFA was also in this section as well. We created the early learning special fund ceiling so that we can support the early learning system. There's a portion that was asking to continue the current position of the institutional analyst for the board. So that position actually rolled into EOEL. And then we were successful in adjusting childcare subsidy amounts. One of the things I wanted to highlight and show the relationship between public pre-K seats and licensed preschool enrollment. So we know that there's licensed capacity, desired capacity, and enrollment. So those are the three data points that are collected through the Department of Human Services and Patch and reported on their monthly data report. And so we wanted to show you the top line is the licensed preschool enrollment and the bottom is EOEL public pre-K seats. And we were really curious about what happened to enrollment at the inflection of the 44 last year. And so you can see the inflection of EOEL on the bottom, that upward ramp. There was a little dip in December. We're not sure about what caused that dip. But when we take a look at the quantity of licensed preschool enrollment in August 1st of 2023 as 15,543. And then we take a look at the licensed preschool enrollment in May of 2025, the decrease, so 15,543 and then 15,202. So you can see it's not directly connected to the influctuation of 880 seats into the public pre-K space. And then we also have been tracking the decline of births and also exits from Hawaii as well. And so one thing that we can see generally across the top line is that it's maintained pretty steady even with it. So what's really great about the whole system is that we are likely serving more children than we have before in the past. So another celebration is the program quality improvement and maintenance. So we supported DHS technical assistance for accreditation, the ability to complete accreditation process and sustain it. And then there's also the Hawaiian language kindergarten entry assessment that has been created. So some things that are still in progress. We know that ECAS and Honolulu City and County are doing a true cost of care analysis with the Children's Funding Project. We are still looking to understand Ohana demand and their facility usage around the state. We're also looking at identifying more effective strategies and approaches to facilitate the private section of ECE program maintenance and success. So looking ahead, these are things that are directly in the roadmap that have not fully yet been fulfilled yet. So addressing the workforce development and support, these are items that were included in the roadmap. So one of them was amending the Honolulu City Council land ordinance provision related to the employment of non-household members in FCC homes registered under DHS admin rules. And implementing refundable income or business tax credits for early learning providers and or their employees. The second one is on facilities, working with counties to revisit square footage requirements appropriate for ECE facilities in the future to include outdoor space. And then working with counties to revise county permitting and land planning codes to include unenclosed outdoor spaces into ECE facilities.
Excuse me, you
Yes.
The first one, the amending the land ordinance, I believe that Jordana shared at the DHS childcare advisory that that's been done.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's great then.
yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you, I did not know
yeah.
that.
Yeah, this is a thing that we're trying to address, there are many things happening. And one of the things I'm hoping we get to in the state plan is figure out some clear lines of communication so that all of these things that are happening can be reported and credited to the appropriate entities that are, we're all doing this work collectively. We want to acknowledge what's being done and also continue the work that EOEL has been doing. So this kind of illustrates how we need to be thinking about and working on some clear communication strategies to share information so that we all have a good picture of what's happening.
Awesome, thank you. So again, this is under facilities. It looks like some of these have already been possibly addressed too. And then the one part is supporting legislative appropriations, similar to that made in Act 257, which is the money that was created the School Facilities Authority funding that they currently have right now. And then under action item number 3, it says explore amendments to the state constitution. And so thinking about the space that the board was in back in 2023, when the roadmap was initially created, and thinking about everything that's been accomplished so far and these looking ahead pieces that have not yet been fully realized. There's just a couple of questions that I have here for the board to consider and think about and have an open dialogue about, so that I can kind of hear, and maybe the board chair can hear about where should we go from here. And I think I just want to re-emphasize that the roadmap is also directly connected to Act 46. So everything that is in Act 46, the roadmap is, how are we actually going to get there? What does the progress look like year over year over year? And so we have one big marker that's coming up in 2027, that 50% of the currently unserved children will have access by 2027 and 100% by 2032. So those are the two marking points. And if you look in the current roadmap, though, there was no created tracking mechanism to see how we're going to get there. So we can kind of just think about that as well.
And that is for 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yes, oh, yeah, so Act 46 is only for the 3 and 4-year-olds. And so here's a question. Now that we have 2 years until our first marking period in 2027, how might the design and content of the board's roadmap evolve while still including proposed legislation for the implementation of Act 46 Session Laws of Hawaii 2020? And so it's a big question, so you can sit with it for a little bit and read it again.
And we would like to hear from board members. I did send it out to the question to board members to give you a little time to think about it. So anybody want to share any thoughts they had since last week?
I sort of have a question. How are they going to determine what the unserved number is? Because there are people who don't want their kids to attend
Yeah.
school, and so we can't just count them under 3 and 4 and 5.
Right. And we have the family child interaction learning programs that we had the presentation on, so that's another choice that people have. That's a really good question. And then we also have family child. They will have a presentation on family child care and license exempt care. And so you'll understand this mixed delivery system has many kinds of programs. And that question of how do we know we're serving everyone that wants to be served, correct? With the kind of program that is best for that family or the family's choice.
So just building on to what you're saying, right? I think that was a challenge when we were first looking at the roadmap. We couldn't make the assumption that all of the births that or the children who weren't already in the program, that all those families wanted to be included. So again, it's hard to figure out what that number is and whether we're meeting it. So I think that's been the challenge. But again, looking at how we expand our programs and services, even though this is focusing on the 3 and 4-year-olds,
Mhm.
like Elaine is saying, there's other opportunities for families to engage. So maybe the next iteration might be able to take that into account, or is that something that the state plan is going to be addressing? Cause it's hard to, figure out, and who are these unmet children?
We could revise the truancy law down to the three.
To the little ones.
Dana put in a comment, that DHS did sent a letter to all Oahu registered family childcare providers on April 22nd to inform them of the revised city and county of Honolulu home occupations employment provisions, which now allow one non-household member to be employed by a family childcare provider. And just to let you folks know that under the DHS, excuse me, the DHS rules, there are family childcare provider rules, and those are for family childcare homes for up to 6 children. And then a family childcare home can have up to 12 children, but those homes will fall under the group childcare homes rules and regulations. So, like I know on Maui, there have been group homes that have 12 children, and they employ, a staff member. And so the fact that now it can be done, Honolulu City and County was kind of unique in that they were not able to do that until this rule was changed. So now the largest county can have group childcare homes, yay. Any other what other questions or comments do people have? I'm thinking again about the communication. I look at Alana, I also think about counties and how we again, that communication between the counties so that it can be publicized what's happening in different parts of the state. Because our board, the board and EOEL, the board has direct authority over EOEL, and the board and EOEL are mandated by the state to coordinate and collaborate with all these other entities. So we have all our partners on the board and beyond the board. And I think that communication, so we can make sure, again, we are tracking the different things that are happening. That's going to be a big piece. And I appreciate Keiko speaking up, because she was, I was on the board in none of us on the voting side of the board were here in 2023. So it would be really great if people have been on the board longer and remember the roadmap. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions.
I have another comment, and
Sure.
and it's an issue that my experience with working at DOE, we build facilities out to meet the need in various places, but then over time,
Right.
populations change, and then all of a sudden there's senior citizens like me, and then you got 12 preschools in there, and then over here you've got all the new families, and then one preschool, so trying to figure out maybe the building facilities, can you convert a preschool into a senior care center? I know the Keith Bashes, I mean, it's always, oh, you need to close that school because there's only so many
Right.
students. And yet over here, you're building a brand new school, and so it's a cyclical process.
Right. Right. And then sometimes then the population, the young population comes back to that
Yeah.
community, yeah. So, yeah, we see these cycles.
Chair, I just wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
I know that we're mandated to collaborate. That's not always the easiest thing to do, being that not everyone in the state is required to collaborate. And I just want to know, Yuko, how is the data sharing? Do you foresee potential issues, or do you feel like it's a cakewalk and we shouldn't be worried about the sharing of data? I know how we all know the issue with sharing of data. I understand it, but for the sake of progressing on the state's plan, do you sense there are any issues as it relates to the sharing of data that we need to advance in the state's plan? That's my main concern. Kalamai. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So I think we have come around to where, especially now that we brought Remy on and we can have somebody really specifically focused in on data and data gathering and data sharing and requests and things like that. It's pretty seamless now between P20 and DOE. So that's one great opening that's happened. We had a really excellent meeting with the Department of Human Services. They actually brought 19 members over to EOEL, and we had a conversation specifically around Act 46 and data sharing and data systems and data gathering, and also pointing to our P20 attainment goal, trying to take a look at workforce and trying to look at number of qualified educators and how many educators we have, and trying to really answer the question of how do we know we're making a difference. I wouldn't say that all of the data sharing pieces are worked through yet, but we had a really productive and excellent conversation the other day. We have met with the Department of Health, and they are very open and willing to work with us. I think there's some internal pieces that they're working through right now. But I think the next really great next step that's going to happen is the data group that just came out of this last ledge session to look at data governance across the state. So I wouldn't say that everything is resolved right now. But I think we're making progress at this point in time.
Would
Yeah,
you
it's
be
gonna be
able to
interesting.
and be willing to share any issues with the sharing of data between other entities and the EOEL in future meetings, and just give us an update as the ELB?
Sorry, it's a little soft in here. We're trying to turn it.
Ask her to talk again.
Can you try and talk again, Cody, please?
My question is if you're willing to provide updates. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah, thank you.
If you're- I'm so sorry, everyone. I have a dog and a 3-year-old. But are you willing to provide updates if there are any issues with the sharing of data to the EOEL in the future, at future meetings? And just give us a brief rundown on what's happening, what kind of help you need, and if people can help.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. I'm going to move on to the second question, which is from your perspective. So we know the strength of the board right now is that everybody has different perspectives and different contexts from where they see things. And so from your perspective, and also beyond Act 46, What do you see as critical issues for children and families and the early childhood system that require immediate attention?
And I apologize, I forgot to put this question into my email. I'm sure you have stuff that came to your mind right away, so please go ahead and share or ask questions, comments.
This would be something I think beyond Act 46 because it's outside of that 3 and 4-year-olds. But on Kauai, the access to infant toddler care is probably one of the biggest gap areas. So in terms of early childhood system from prenatal to 8, that would be one of the focus areas I think would be very important to focus on.
Aloha, this is Soma. What's coming up for me, coming also from a Neighbor Island perspective, is early identification, 0 to 3, on developmental support that could be intervened with referral and then actual support system to support our keiki so that they're ready for 3, 4, 5, and beyond.
This is Disa. Am I allowed to chime in?
Yes, please.
Although it's great to have brick and mortar, I think that there are many young families in particular or single families that don't necessarily want to put their kids into a 8 to 2 program. And so I would start looking at what are the needs of that population.
Thank you.
That's relevant. Hi, this is Kauai Burgess. That comment is relevant to one of my questions about FCILs, where families are included in the learning environment and families then are able to go home and teach their children. I just wonder about funding, worry about funding for them. I know that what happened during the legislature this past session. So, but I'm just raising it as a concern as it relates to FCILs.
Aloha, this is Joni. This question is very specific, but then I'm going to throw it out anyway. One of the principals from the from KL Elementary School that has a pre-K asked why can't he do like like a district exception and have their employees' children be admitted into the, I mean, they meet the qualifications, but then there's like, I guess, they weren't selected to be, and then, because it's a rural community. And so for that employee to have to bring their, take their child, into the Hilo area is doesn't make sense for them.
This is Alana. Can I add along the lines of workforce? So supports for existing workforce, recruiting, retention, and also compensation.
Since Alana mentioned compensation, I do want to put in a plug for the cost estimation study that the city and Jordana of the city and county coordinator, and Vivian Ito of Early Childhood Action Strategies are working to get data from programs so we can have some baseline data on what salaries are now. It's been a little bit hard going. I just want to encourage programs, or if you know of program directors, their data is not going to be made public, identifiable, but it's so important that we get that baseline data so that we know where the salaries are now, so we know how far we have to go. So, you know, they are going to really, your data is going to be confidential. It'll all be aggregate data. I just want to encourage those of you who know programs, program directors, if you've gotten that inquiry from them. And I know I heard that it's a pretty intense survey. You will get compensation. There's a gift card or something, but that data is going to be so important, and we will be able to move forward much better if we get a good pool of programs that respond. So just want to make that plug. And just to let you guys know that that cost estimate study, right now, how DHS determines the level of subsidy to programs is by a market rate. So every year, I think they survey the programs to see what they're charging, and that's determines what the subsidy will be. So it's, but it doesn't really cover the full cost of quality because, and it's usually lower on the neighbor islands than it is on Oahu. And it kind of keeps that funding at this level that is just inadequate to recruit and retain qualified people like Alan was talking about. So that's why this cost estimate study is so important, especially in our state that has such a high cost of living. We want to get that information so that DHS will eventually be able to move to that cost estimate kind of modeling instead of a market rate, so that we get to a point where we are subsidizing or the subsidies are set at a rate that really reflects being able to recruit and retain staff, qualified staff. So this is, you know, early childhood is kind of, yeah, it's insane. I've been in it for 40 something years and I'm still learning. So please keep asking questions and commenting, because I think your questions are really important because it helps us see where we need to address. And I really appreciate hearing where you guys see as critical issues.
Oh, hi, everyone. Sorry, kind of lost my voice again. I know I mentioned this at my initial state hearing, but not at an official board meeting. But being a director of a preschool, I can share this. One of the highest and most expensive costs that goes up every year exponentially is health insurance. So I highly recommend that the EOEL look into that for preschools. What I found out is preschools in Hawaii have the highest rate because insurance companies go by gender, primarily women, and they go by length of service. Preschools have, like you just said, 40 years, right? So every year it goes up. So if you look at that, if you really want to impact a school's cost, you help with their health insurance. Yeah, I can't even tell you how high it is now. Like for one employee, well, it could be close to like 1,500 for a single plan. And we have a few employees. If there's a way that we could have a group rate that you folks can look into, and I know that you can have group rates if you have certain numbers, that would significantly help. I appreciate that we're trying to subsidize and, you know, give a, I guess, a cost for each child. But if you really want to impact the cost, I think help with with health insurance, that's a huge, yeah, we just tied into salary, health insurance, yeah, thank you. And at $1,500 per month, so imagine times.
So I was gonna add one more thing, sorry. Just for in terms of families, so cost for families. Elaine, you kind of touched on subsidies, but looking at the expansion of the preschool open door subsidy that's available for parents and also seeing how we can really optimize that investment from the state to ensure more families can be receiving subsidy. I believe DHS has some changes that are going through also soon.
Can I add just one thing? This might be kind of small and contextually, but one of the things some of us have been chatting about is whether or not there's care provided after school for the EOEL preschool kids. And whether or not that, if there's not care from like 2 to 5 o'clock or whatever it is until parents are probably work, whether that might discourage enrollment. Because if you don't have anybody to pick up the kids at 2, you might not avail yourself of the opportunity. So some of us are talking story about just solutions to that particular issue. Not sure it is a entire board conversation, but I think just holistically, we have to think about what does the family need, and how can we help provide that for them?
I wonder too, adding on to what Luther said, whether the classrooms that are in public schools will have services during the summer when the school is closed.
That's a good one, by the way. Was that Phil?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good thing I've known the voice for many years. So hi, Phil. By the way, I should say we should all, since it's a hybrid meeting, we should all announce our names before we speak. I realize I didn't do that. I'm Stephen Schatz. But I'm only getting by because I know people's voices. I'm sure there are others who are even more confused than I am.
Kind of remember that when Kamehameha started their preschools, they were school day. And then I think families paid an extra charge, Napua, for the after-school care.
Yes, they did.
And then not every family did that, so they would kind of combine the children that were needing the school care after-school care into a classroom or two. Correct?
Yeah, and then the way that we did it, families needed to either be enrolled in school or working, and then they would be put into the pool, and then that was another lottery. And then that's how the after-school care came about. And then we recently transitioned about 5 years, maybe 6 years ago, into a full day program because that's what the communities needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it okay if I move on to?
Yeah, I think so.
I just trying to be mindful of my time.
Good.
Perfect. So now I guess we open this portion up to any public comment that might be out there. So for our systems updates, I just wanted to share that we welcomed Megan Watanabe onto our team. She's our new office assistant. And she's previously from Mililani and she graduated from UH Manoa. And we thought it's really cool that she holds a 5th degree black belt in practicing kendo, and she has also completed internationally. So we're very excited to have Megan on our team. And I'd like to turn this portion over to Heather.
So in May, we had our 2-day forum where we had roughly 60 to 70 people attend each day. In the afternoon, we invited the participants to offer recommendations on our 5 building block committees, what they perceive to be goals and actionable priorities. And so what we're doing right now is we've sent out the invitations for our building block committees, which will begin next week. It being summer, some of the RSVPs are slow to return. But next week, our first building block committees will meet. And there will be an introduction and to go over the things that were discussed at our forum and also some of the guidance that they've received from the steering committee. And the beginning goals that they establish will be then sent back to the steering committee. Further meetings will take place in July and August with returns back to the steering committee each time. So that's where we currently are. If you look at our June and August, it's very busy with our 5 committees meeting. And that will take us through the summer. And these are some pictures from our committee, from our community engagement forum. We had some wonderful conversations. And because we had such a variety of participants, we covered a lot of topics. These are some of the comments we received. And one consistent one was having more family voices. We were fortunate enough to have, I think, 2 family members each day. And they shared with us their perspective, and it was very meaningful for all of us there. On the second day, we also had a youngster join us, Marvin, and we all enjoyed seeing him and knowing that that's what we were all there for.
Thank you. And then Mikako, are you online, or Remy?
Yes, I am online. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to share about the Keiki Oka Aina's annual hoike. The event was held at St. Anne Church in Kaneohe on June 5th. EOEL was invited to the annual hoike as a vendor. Remy, Stephanie, and I participated in the event. We were able to meet many families and share information on early learning opportunities and the UH stipend program. We also gave out toothbrushes, toothpaste, other dental care, and also information to the families that visited our booth. It was a great opportunity to see families and other service providers. We thank Keiki Oka Aina for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikako. Sorry, and the end of that should have another public comment slide that I did not insert. So if anybody would like to offer any comment, please feel free to do so.
Jordana had a comment in chat. She and Vivian have offered to meet providers on site to help with the survey, with the market survey. I mean, the childcare cost estimates are. So she's meeting with a few next week and would like, is welcome to do more. That's great. Thank you, Jordana. Any other? Is it for now? Okay, so we will have a break. We will come back at 2:30, so 10 minutes. Get started again. Okay, we're getting started. Angela Miyashiro is from Learning to Grow, which is based at Windward Community College. So I asked her to give a presentation on what their organization does. So Angela, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to put your slides up?
If I can have my colleague May do the slides.
Okay, so May would need to share her screen.
Okay. May on.
Is
Yeah.
May on?
Yeah, May O.
Hi, I'm on. I will.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Is everybody able to see the slides?
Yes. thank
Okay,
you.
and is my audio okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Angela Miyashiro. I'm the program manager of the Learning to Grow project. Thank you to Chair Yamashita and Yuko for asking me to present to you today. The Learning to Grow project is a grant-funded project through the state's Department of Human Services, and we get our funding through the Child Care Developmental Block Grant. The project has been in existence since the year 2000, and we are, as Chair Yamashita said, housed at Windward Community College. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about our project and really focus in on how we support home-based child care providers. Next slide, please. Learning to Grow's mission really is to support home-based childcare providers through educational outreach. Our goal is to provide home-based childcare providers with knowledge and skills of early learning, access to available resources, and really support them in providing quality early learning opportunities for young children. Next slide. So to start, I really wanted to define what home-based childcare is and really leaning on the definition provided by the Hawaii Department of Human Services. The first type of care is license-exempt homes. It's also known as family, friend, or neighbor care. This is a type of care setting that is providing legally exempt childcare, and it's in accordance with the Hawaii Revised Statute 346-152. This type of setting is not required to meet the state's registration or licensing requirements. However, if the provider is caring for a child whose family receives DHS childcare subsidies, there are requirements to meet minimum health and safety standards. They can care for up to 2 children who are not related to the provider, in addition to their own children or relatives, and that's defined by blood, marriage, or adoption. There is a limit, however, in the total number of children, so you could have 6, and that's only if the provider is caring for a child whose family receives DHS childcare subsidies. I think it's important to note that there are other types of license-exempt care that DHS recognizes, such as before and after school care, but for the purposes today, I'm really going to hone in on license-exempt homes. Next slide, please. The second type of home-based childcare is family childcare homes. So family childcare homes is defined as a private residence where 3 to no more than 6 children at any given time is cared for by a provider. This type of setting receives a certificate of registration or approval issued by the state DHS, and it authorizes the operation of the childcare facility. They have to meet certain minimum health and safety as well as adult-child ratio and training standards, including pediatric first aid and CPR. Similarly to license exempt homes, a maximum of 6 children can be cared for at any one time in the home. And of the 6 children, no more than 2 children under the age of 18 months can be cared for at any one time. Next slide. So if you think about your family or maybe people that you know, you'll most likely know someone who had a home-based childcare provider. This scenario really is highlighted in a 2023 report, which reported that at least 43% of young children in Hawaii are cared for by families or relatives. It's also noted that Hawaii has the highest percentage of families, 72%, that use federal funds to pay for home-based childcare. Nationally, it's estimated that 60% of children under the age of 6 are in home-based childcare, and this number has remained consistently high over the years. So as we know, there are many factors that influence a family's choice of childcare, and that did come about in your discussion earlier. So these include values, views of quality childcare, the child's age, scheduling, and cost. And the following really seem to be some of the common reasons that families choose home-based childcare. The first one is home-based childcare tends to have the maximum of 6 children in a home, so this really allows for a smaller group size. It's often a preferred choice for families with infants and toddlers, or families with children that may need extra individualized care. Sometimes for families, they are looking for care that would accommodate both their infant and preschooler, and a home-based childcare may be ideal for that. Families also indicate a preference for care providers that they know and trust and with whom they share similar cultural values. In particular, it has been shown that Hawaiian families show a preference for this type of ohana care. And then for some families, they are looking for a care in a specific area, close to home or close to work. And additionally, some families may have non-traditional hours or home-based childcare providers may be more flexible to accommodate a family's work or school schedule. In general, home-based childcare is less expensive than center-based care. According to the 2023 Hawaii Childcare Market Rate Study, the median monthly rate for a licensed center-based care is about $1,000 a month. A center-based infant toddler care is about $1,800 a month. And in comparison, a registered family child care charges around $850 to $900 a month. And for licensed exempt homes, the cost is probably around $400. Lastly, in some areas, such as rural areas, home-based care may be the only option for families. And this is magnified by the fact that there's an overall shortage of early childhood seats, which you all know. The greatest need being infant toddler care. And Alana did kind of allude to this, but in Kauai, there are no infant toddler care centers. And there are, however, 16 family child care providers who serve infants and toddlers. Next slide, please. So it's important to see the spectrum of home-based childcare providers. For the majority of license exempt providers, they may view themselves as helping out the family, and they're really not interested in becoming a regulated provider. Many times they comment that they raise their own children, so they don't see the need for any formal care or formal training. On the other hand, some family childcare providers, they really serve as the primary care provider, a family partner, small business owner. And while family childcare providers, they don't usually take the traditional career path into the field, we hear that many times they enjoy the work because it allows them to stay at home with their own keiki and establish a business, or here it's a preferred path for former center-based educators who see this as an option to have them lead their own program in their home. What we've noticed is there are similarities of home-based childcare providers. In general, they tend to work alone and often don't have the same support as a center-based provider. And based on the recent adoption of the DHS administrative rules, all family childcare providers, as well as licensed exempt care providers who care for children whose families receive the childcare subsidies, they're required to do some minimum health and safety training, and they are subject to monitoring visits. So with that in mind, the Learning to Grow project, we really focus our support on these care providers. We want to build on the relationship that these care providers already have with children and families, and we really want to add to their knowledge of child development information, connect them with community resources, health and safety topics, and really give them some activities that they can do with Keiki in their home. So to do this, we were really intentional with our approach to really be able to meet the care providers where they are. So to be clear, Learning to Grow, we support family child care providers statewide, but we also really target our support to a very small segment of the licensed exempt care providers. So we target the families who receive the child care subsidies from DHS, and those families select the licensed exempt care provider to care for their child 0 to 5. So for these populations, we receive a mailing list from DHS each month, and we mail them a newsletter about a specific child development topic, suggested books, featured activities, and community resources. We also include an activity sheet where they can reflect on what they learned and how they're using that information, and that's how we track participation. When they return the activity sheet, they receive a free children's book from us. And for the care providers, we also give them a 1-hour certificate that they can use towards their DHS ongoing training requirement. So for these active participants in our program, the feedback really is that they love the children's books. We really try to feature books for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, things that are age appropriate. And we work with local publishers to really get the nice hardcover books into the family and care provider's home. We also get great feedback about the activities, that it gives them ideas on how they play with Keiki. And oftentimes they comment that it's been a way to bond with the child. Next slide, please. So through our outreach program, we had an opportunity in 2019 to partner with Friends of the Library and many other partners to establish Ohana Readers. Ohana Readers is a literacy-focused initiative that centers on building early literacy through children reading with family. It does this through the Imagination Library, which is a book gifting program created by Dolly Parton that mails free, high-quality books to children from birth until they begin school or age 5, no matter the family's income. While the Dolly Parton Imagination Library has now expanded into many areas around Hawaii, Learning to Grow sponsors the program from Molokai and Lanai. We really selected these communities to support because we know that the concentration of home-based childcare is very high in these areas, primarily because they have few, if any, center-based care options. Next slide, please. And then as part of our family childcare outreach, we started an accreditation facilitation program. The goal really is to support FCC providers who are working towards the National Association for Family Childcare, or NAFCC accreditation. We chose to support FCC providers through this accreditation because it's the only national accreditation that's specific to family childcare providers. We provide a combination of individualized, group, and financial support to help providers through the process. So this means that we have providers paired up with a coach who really is their point person to guide them through the standards. And the standards focus in on relationships, environment, learning activities, health and safety, and professional business practices. We also have monthly trainings on Zoom on a Saturday morning where we talk about the standards, but we really hope to create a network of providers to have them learn from one another and create a safe space to discuss successes and challenges. And then we also provide financial support by paying for half of their accreditation fees. So we currently have 14 providers in our group, and of those, 5 have been accredited. We have 4 on Oahu, with 1 just recently retiring and 1 in Maui. Next slide, please. So in addition to supporting the home-based childcare providers, we've taken some of the ideas that we've learned throughout the years and shared them with the early childhood community. Most notably is the Basic Health and Safety Practices Guide, which is the image on the top left. We initially created this guide as like best practices for home-based childcare providers for health and safety. It was later adopted by DHS to serve as the initial health and safety training for all childcare providers in all settings. In addition to that, some of our activity ideas I mentioned in our mailings, They've been compiled into activity books. So those are the middle and the image on the top right. And then we also have some children's books that we've used and distributed to many organizations and families throughout the years. So being a part of the university system, we really value research, but really taking that information and making it useful and accessible to the community. In addition to that, we really pride ourselves in being a partner with other organizations, bringing training to home-based childcare providers statewide. Of note, we're a partner in having the annual Family Childcare Conference in Hawaii. And then next slide. So to close, I wanted to share some things to consider, and this actually did come up in some of your discussions, so that was great to hear. So Hawaii has really been innovative in its support to home-based childcare providers. A few months ago, Partners in Development had their talk about Tutuani. They've been nationally recognized for their work with this population, including the FCIL programs. In addition to our program, many partners such as Patch have been really intentional in the support of home-based childcare providers, being cognizant of their scheduling in terms of making home visits or making training opportunities available in the evening or weekends. Nationally, Head Start has made strides to offer family childcare partnerships as a way to expand Head Start eligible families to various settings, as well as supporting the family childcare providers with comprehensive services, including training and coaching support. In Hawaii, I'm aware of FCC partnerships in Maui and Oahu. And then nationally, states across the nation are really looking at pathways to strengthen the childcare sector. One recommendation from research is to be intentional in the pathways to make it inclusive and flexible, being able to recognize prior learning, not just in center-based settings, but also home-based settings as well. And then lastly, access to funding. So similar to all other sectors of childcare, family childcare providers really benefited from the ARPA and the other stabilization funds. But as those funds dry up, it's important to ensure that they're included in some type of funding. Currently, aside from the subsidy money to families, there is no direct state funding earmarked to support family childcare providers. Home-based childcare really serves many children in Hawaii, in particular infants and toddlers. So it'd be important to ensure that they aren't forgotten. So with that, the last slide has my contact information, and I'm happy to take any questions, both from the board and public comment as well.
We'll let the board ask questions first, and then we'll have public have an opportunity. So anybody from the board have any questions or comments? I found it interesting, Angela, that you said 72% of the subsidies, childcare subsidies, DHS subsidies go to family childcare or licensed exempt care, or
so that was from a 2023 report. Dana, I don't know if you know it offhand, but I do know that it is a high percentage.
Right, and that's been the case for a long time. So it speaks to Phil's question about, how do we know? We need to be able to count all of these children that are in a place that their families choose. So thank you for sharing that information. I was curious because I know when the Child Care Development Block Grant Funds regulations changed and a little more monitoring was required, I wondered if the number of subsidies or people who choose to accept subsidies would go down. I don't know if you or Dana know if that stayed flat or gone down or gone up.
I know on our end, it has decreased pretty markedly since the adoption of the rules. And I saw Dana nod her head as well, so.
Okay. Yeah. So for everybody else, what happened was 2014, the federal government reauthorized the Child Care Development Block Grant. And within that, and that flows to the state through DHS. And so the DHS have to change rules and regs to align with CCDBG. And one of them was that license exempt programs, which up to then had very minimal, and it's still pretty minimal monitoring, but now it's a little more than was required before. So they, like Angela had in her slideshow, there's background checks and things that were not required before. So that's kind of the context of that funding. It's a big piece of, a lot of families access that. So it's a really important part of our system.
Aloha, Angela. This is Joni Onishi from Hawaii Island. You're housed at Windward Community College only as a place there, or are you a program at Windward Community College?
So we are a grant that's funded through DHS, but we're housed within student affairs at Windward Community
Or
College.
at Windward Community.
Mhm.
Do you have any staff on Hawaii Island?
Yes, Wendy Correa.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you. So
Yeah, so-
she's with, you mean with YMCA?
No, she is with Learning to Grow, but her office is in the Patch office just because it's kind of like our satellite office.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have staff on other islands too?
With the Ohana Readers part of our program, we have one staff person on Molokai.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I do see that Alana put a comment in the chat that they actually have a license center with infant toddler seats. And yeah, there is a infant toddler center on the military base there. Oh, and Early Head Start is in the process of opening a facility, so that's great. Mahalo, Alana. Any comments or questions from the public?
Terry Locke, UH Manoa College of Education. Thank you, Angela. I really appreciated hearing your presentation. This morning, I was in a national webinar talking about power to the profession, and family childcare is a critical component of that. And so in our state, I've been coordinating or at least trying to pay attention to the recommendations empowered to the profession and be able to begin to act on those recommendations. And we have a task force, and our task force has 3 family childcare providers. And it's been wonderful to include them in our discussions as we develop, as we think about who we are as early childhood education profession, and not to leave them out, as you said. So I appreciate your comment about not to forget our family childcare providers. Thank you, Angela. And I've just put in my into the chat is organization maybe you know of, but want to also alert the board. It's called Homegrown Childcare, and it's a national organization that is beneficial. Really supports family childcare, homegrown. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Any other comments or questions from the public? I'm not seeing anything in chat, so mahalo, Angela. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the information and thank you for presenting. Okay, so we'll go back. Okay, now I have to remember share screen. And then go back to Yes. There was something I needed to do. Refresh. Okay, sorry, talking to myself, the only one who listened, so. I'm so famous for doing that, be walking along and a staff at the Head Start on campus, they're just laughing at me, because like, who are you talking to? I'm just. Okay, and look, and then I lost it, hello. Okay. So Angela did hers, and we had our public comment, so we'll go to the next. Okay, so this was something that, that's not supposed to be an exclamation point, it's supposed to be a one. That was passed in the 2025 session. It requires an annual evaluation of executive directors and annual reports to the legislature. And so we actually have our processes in place for evaluation of our director. And I am correcting myself because I kept referring to Director Arikawa Cross as executive director, and she reminded me her title is director. So I'm like, okay, so I'm reminding myself her title is director. So thank you, Yuko. So we, I think you might have had a chance to look at this. There was a last paragraph that said, board annual reports to the legislature. And I was like, what? I don't think we've done annual reports. And I asked our previous chair, and he said, no, they didn't do annual reports. However, when I look back at the statute, EOEL does do annual reports to the legislature. And the board has given reports as requested to the legislature. So at first I was kind of freaking out, but I think we're okay. We have our evaluation of the director in place, and EOEL does a report to the legislature. And if the board is requested to do a report, we can do a report. But I just wanted to let everybody know about that. Anybody have any questions or comments about my freak out? Anything from the public? Any questions or comments? Okay. So the next item is the review of our process. So this month, in a couple minutes, Director Yuko will share highlights of our accomplishments for the last year. And then on July 1st, I will be sending a Google survey to board members with the criteria that were established by the governance committee and approved by the board. And I developed that survey with information from the previous board's survey to the board. And in the survey to board members, what you'll find is on each page, there's going to be a link, because Yuko keeps very good records of the things that she does and how she's meeting the goals that are set. So there'll be a link to her portfolio in that, so that you will have information to look back at, okay? And so I will be sending that survey out. I think I'm gonna give you maybe a week so that you don't forget. Sometimes, if I make the deadline, yeah, then it goes to the bottom of the pot. So I think I'll make it a week so that hopefully then I can bug you guys if you haven't returned it yet. And then in late July, I will meet with Yuko and we'll discuss the survey results. And the governance has a regular meeting the last Friday of the month, I think. And at that meeting can establish criteria for next year. And I've asked Yuko to kind of create a draft for next year on what she wants to work with, so that the board has, the committee has criteria to start with. And what she's working from, you guys, is a larger document that was adopted by the previous board of a whole bunch of criteria, but we do not expect the director to address everything on that extensive list every year, as far as this evaluation process is concerned. But she also is always looking at all of those things, even if she is not being directly evaluated on those. So then at the August board meeting, the chair will summarize the results of the survey. And then at that meeting, the governance committee will present the criteria for the next year. And so with this time will be the first time that we are on the correct timeline for giving you director criteria, doing the evaluation, because in previous year, last year, we approved the criteria in November, I think. And before that, because the whole board the voting board turned over, we didn't have enough information to actually do the survey. So anyway, we are getting there. And I'm gonna give it to Yuko now, so she can share her highlights.
So hi, everybody. So in sharing my highlights, the way I'm gonna choose to go about this for the board is basically to just walk you through what the chair will be sending out, just so you can understand what you're looking at. So the first thing is this picture, right? Isn't it like super cute, right? So, but anyway, a really fun thing that Tara did at the beginning of this school year was we created like a welcome back to school video. And so the people from our whole EOL team submitted pictures of themselves when they're preschool aged. And this happened to be it. So I said, oh, this would be cute in front of the portfolio. So I just wanted to show you how to navigate it and some things that I'd like you to consider as you're taking a look at this. There are 5 main points to the portfolio, and they're linked down here. So visionary leadership, advocacy and communication, board relations, operation management, and professionalism. And if you ever want to get back to this main page, because this is where you'll link to each of those sections, just click on this home button right here in the corner. And so when you go to visionary leadership, what you'll see here is this is the complete title of this section. So visionary leadership, capacity building of statewide early learning system from prenatal to K entrance. That's the title of that section of the evaluation. And then you're going to see 1.1, 1.2, and it'll just kind of go on in that section. So if there's red wording underneath here, these are specifically from last year's evaluation that were called up for me to take a look at. So one of the things you'll just notice here, and I'm gonna just kind of just give a highlight and overview, but on the left, you'll see was the organizational chart of our office previously, and then on the right is how we've redesigned it and filled the positions in our office. And you can see a little bit more about that later. And I talk about why we chose to do some things. So you guys can look through that. The other thing that we did was we went back and we did a deep dive into the executive office on early learning and also the early learning landscape in general in Hawaii. And what we did on the left side is these are significant work and activities of EOEL since its inception. And on the right side is the evolution of it in Hawaii in general. So we try to find as many things. And the first one comes back from 1976. So, we tried to piece it together, hyperlinking to specific moments in history. And the one hyperlink here is also the EOEL budget since inception. Everything that we've ever asked for, received, did not receive, and what it was intended to be for. So you can take a look at that. We're also talking about how we are going to be moving into a new partnership with Harvard University Strategic Data Project. And this is really to continue to improve these data pieces that we know are really needed for the early learning system. So we're really excited about that. And I had shared about that earlier. This is one part that I want to highlight. So as I was looking at the evaluation for the director, I was also trying to be conscious of, is it also covering what the statute says the director's supposed to be doing? And so I have my evaluation pieces, but I also wanted to try to call out parts of the statute that talks about what the director's supposed to be doing. And if the board members want to take a look at it, I tried to align it as best as possible. Some might seem a little odd or what have you, but when I talked to the chair about this, she said maybe this can be something that the governance subcommittee can take a look at. So again, this is section 1.2 as part of the evaluation. The grade box is directly from statute. And then the red is what was asked of me from last year's evaluation to accomplish this year. So you'll see that pattern emerge wherever it was applicable. I did stick in every single part of the statute someplace in there. So some parts align, some parts do not align, and maybe some I can move to another section. We spoke about, you know, our retreat, our Hawaiian language retreat. This is I think one of the most coolest things that we've done to try to learn more about a new space that we were stepping into and everything that has happened before we stepped into this space. So that was a really amazing moment. I was invited to speak at the Native Hawaiian Convention in the promotion of the Hawaiian language programs. We partnered with Head Start at their convening, supported conferences and also accreditation support through this year. And then of course, our big undertaking right now is the state plan. So you can, when you see these arrows here, you can just click through and you can see what's pertaining to the state plan in that section. And then when we talked about legislation, so this, I'm talking about, you know, this is the first time that we ever reached out to people in support of testimony. And so I highlighted some of that here. And then, of course, thinking about our budget and what are we asking for and how has it grown over time. Then I click the home button, come on to the next one. So advocacy and communication. And so again, this is a section that has a statute connected to it. And so this big piece up here is basically about starting out at the Hawaii graduates. I mean, the prior attainment goal that was formerly Hawaii graduates for Hawaii's future, but now we're looking at, Hawaii's graduates for Hawaii's future is what it's called now. It was previously the 55 by 25, but when I first gave my presentation last year, we did not have any metrics for the percent of early care and education settings with a qualified or experienced educator because the data was not connected yet. And so when we did our presentation in April, we finally did have some metrics tied to the educators that were in that space. And so you can see the presentation that I made to the P20 Council linked into here. I was also invited to be on a panel talking about early literacy. And so highlighting early literacy and early childhood. We were a part of a piece on the legislative session with the Hawaii Public Radio. We did a press conference for new pathways into the early learning field. This year, continued to promote the early learning stipend. And when we realized that it was the educational assistants that were the whole, our team shifted and started to do targeted sessions directly towards those people. We revamped our website, we revamped our Facebook page, we created an Instagram. And one thing I was really excited about what Tara did was we started a monthly newsletter. So you can see in August, we had 224 reads of our newsletter. And then when you look onto the right side in April, we had about 1,400. And so it's kind of cool that it's reaching more people. And every time we meet more people, we start to get connected and we start to hear more stories back from them. So communications wise, I think that was really awesome. And then this is also really neat because Tara helped to get a spot onto the governor's page that was talking about early learning. So I think that that was really great for our community as well. We did a presentation on the landscape of the mixed delivery system with the UH Center on Disability Studies. And then moving into our communication with legislators through the questioning, I think from Jen and new people to our team, how can we try to present what EOEL does in a different way for those who still may not understand? And I would say, do not assume anything, because this appeared to be excessively helpful for many people, even so much so that they wanted to post it up and keep it as a reference point. So this is really great, and continuing to ask and wonder, what else do we need to do to help to communicate what's happening in the early learning space? And try to use that question to help drive our message to people. We worked with Migrant Head Start. So we do not have a Migrant Head Start in Hawaii, but they were issuing farm and food worker relief programs. And so we partnered with Head Start, Migrant Head Start to issue this out. So we were on Oahu, we went to Maui, we went to Molokai, and we were supposed to get to one more island, and we did not get there. We partnered again with Stanford Center on Early Childhood, trying to get information from families through our rapid survey project. And we do have preliminary data that came back to us, but we're still kind of sifting through it all. Families received $5 gift cards, which was really cool, you know, for participating, and that did not come out of our budget, so that was even better. But we thank everybody who helped promote that survey. And then, of course, participating in outreach. And the only way that we can participate in outreach is when people tell us about it and invite us to it. So if you told us about it and invited us out, we really thank you, because it's really being out and amongst everybody that you hear the real things that they want to talk about, and the struggles that they have, and their personal stories, and what they're looking for. And I think that that's one of the best parts about doing outreach. Then on the bottom, talking about expansion of preschool open doors, expansion of early learning, partnering with the Hawaii Business Roundtable, partnering with people to write testimony for us. You know, that's us at the ledge. There's a nene. We had to take a picture. That's our mascot. So, you know, not our mascot, but like we have the nene. So that was actually kind of cool. But, and then also the success of this past session, which is pretty phenomenal. In addition to other things that are going on with everybody else, is expanding pathways to access, and also promoting health through oral health and the grant that was written this past year. So in working with the board, one of the things was to create the statewide comprehensive needs assessment. So we did that, and you can have it linked here when you take a look at that. This is just talking about, these are all the presentations to the board this past year, all of my one-on-ones with the chair. And during legislative season, we have weekly Monday meetings to run through things that are happening, things that we've heard, what we know is coming up, other things that may be coming up. And so those are very helpful to move through the year. Now that we have data, we've got Remy analyzing the impact of EOEL pre-K on kindergarten readiness. And so that's been very positive and promising, in addition to our near results. So while it is only looking at public's portion in the near results.
Can you near stands for?
Oh, I'm so sorry. The National Institute for Early Education and Research. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Maybe, so what I'll do is, let me write that out in the, thank you. I will write that out, and maybe I can I'll hyperlink it. Okay, let me work on that. So I will link that in there so that you can see the results. So near this organization takes a look at public pre-K options across the nation. they have a list of indicators that they have done research on that are deemed to rate a program of high quality. And EOEL and charter schools have both scored 10. So we are one of 5 states that have scored 10s on the NEAR assessment. And so the distinction between board's policy making role and the directors our admin role. So really talking about the travel policy that you guys worked on this year and the member reimbursement, it was great because it helps us facilitate your travel and the other reimbursements we need to make to you. So that was really great. And then looking at the priority to guide our work during the ledge season. So the board created their legislative session priorities, and then everything that we looked for during the session was geared towards what was indicated in the ledge priorities this upcoming year. Operations management wise, so again, looking at the needs of the budget for our system, we also went into the children's funding project to look at the fiscal map. So these are just screenshots of the fiscal map because it's still in a beta mode. So these are just a few screenshots of what it's going to show. But basically this fiscal map is going to include public dollars from federal and state sources. We're really happy we captured some of those federal sources, federal captures before some of them disappeared. Fiscal maps can also include local resources and sometimes private dollars from foundations and other philanthropies. But right now we're just looking at trying to figure out who is investing how much and for what. And so hopefully this can help to tell us what dollars are being utilized, what are the dollars being utilized for, and what else can we utilize those dollars for. We also finally turned on our online application system. So we had a lot of feedback from people out in the community who helped to do outreach that our prior application was inaccessible to families who may have been experiencing other kinds of challenges. So we worked really hard to get on online application. But what this is actually telling us right now is that when we receive information from a family, we can now share this to the Department of Education. So even though we are administratively attached, we can port information into the Department of Education. So part of our application has a part that's talking about Head Start. So our next steps is to port to Head Start, and then also to port out to the Department of Health for the home visiting program. And so if we can do that, then we will realize that we can accept information from one source and then port to the different departments, which is a big step in terms of data sharing at point of application and not after enrollment. And then again, looking at our budget briefings, so this is what we presented at our budget briefings at the beginning of the year. And then compliance, so we have an onboarding folder, so everybody who's new into the office goes through the same onboarding process regardless of what role you're in, to ensure that all the requirements of what you need to fulfill at the beginning of the year or at any time of the year are completed within your first 10 days. The other part was to recruit, hire, and retain. So we hired all of these folks this year, which is really awesome, building our team out, which has been wonderful. We've got some awesome people. And then I included this because I thought it was kind of awesome that somebody just sent me a thank you. I thought that was nice. So when we look at professional growth and development, I have picked a specific area over the last 2 years. So one was on family engagement. This past year was on trauma-informed care in classrooms. And then I'm working on the next year's one. So for the whole office will go through one type of PD. But then we also have PD that's specific to our EOEL pre-K team that they need to go through. We're supporting professional growth and development for the office support staff. So for example, how to do quality service, employee engagement, and de-escalation, because we got a lot of phone calls sometimes. And then also for other specific roles. So whether you're communications or you're on the policy side or with your Head Start or with mental health or being a part of the Hunt Institute's Early Childhood Leadership Summit with other legislative folks across the nation. And then one of the exciting things that we got this year was legislative process training for EOEL from Jen. And it's excellent. She's going to be doing another session for our pre-K team at the beginning of July. And I'm sure we're gonna do it again because it's wonderful. And then the last part is this professionalism piece. Just a brief reflection, some pictures about outreach. This is I sent out a weekly newsletter to our team, and everything is always driven back to our vision and our mission, and anything that pulls to our vision and our mission. And so the way that I like to see and approach our work is we need to have local context, but we also need to take a look at our state and then broader what is happening across the nation, so that we can keep ourselves calibrated with what's happening all over the place. And so everything that folds into the future focused weekly bulletin is all tied to different aspects of our vision and our mission and our guiding principles. And then the bottom, I wanted to highlight this. I thought this is really awesome, but Mia Moore was my first grade student, my first year of teaching, which is, I apologize for mistakes. I told her I apologize, but what was so cool was that I didn't know it was her, but my former school that I taught at my first year of teaching, she ended up being the first EOEL pre-K teacher at that school. So it's so awesome. And when I heard it was her, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be there. And then on the far right, it was on the far left and the far right, it was so funny, but she kept her notebook from when I was her teacher. So she brought it because she knew I was coming, and I was looking at, what we were working on together when she was in my class. But I thought that was a really cool moment for me. So anyway, this is the online portfolio. You're gonna have access to it so that you can click around and see the hyperlinks. I'm gonna fix the near part and add that one there. But if you have any questions on navigating it, or if you try to open something and it's not available to you, it'll send me a message and then I can open access to you. But I think I've opened up all the hyperlinks so that everybody can have access to see what's been going on this past year.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. That's so tech savvy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, thank you very much.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay, let me go back to agenda.
You mean public comment?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
public
thank you.
comment, sorry,
Public
thank
comment.
you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
thank you, Gil. While I'm working on this, any comments from the public? Or from the board? Yeah. Oh, see, look, I had it on.
Thank you.
I don't think I see anything in chat, so we'll go on to the next item. Okay, the letter of support for Head Start, and as everyone knows, things change on a daily basis, it seems. But at least last meeting, I'll just review last meeting, the board approved coordinating with the congressional delegation. And mahalo to Jen, she met with a couple of our congressional their staff and got some feedback. In general, there was no concern about speaking up. So that's kind of that was kind of the concern that we wanted to address, to make sure that we weren't going against something that our congressional delegation was doing, and there was no concern about us speaking up. And for now, in the current budget proposal, Head Start at least is flat funded. It is still in there. And that process is not over yet. So given the complexity of the situation and what I thought was going to be simple, I'm willing to let it go of writing a letter of support because, for now it is okay. But I want to encourage all board members to advocate as individuals for Head Start. If you look for National Head Start Association, I know they have sign-ons that you can do. I'm going to ask Ephraim, any other organizations that come to your mind that are initiating support for Head Start, early Head Start. besides the National Head Start Association?
Yeah, there's a bunch of community partners across our state have
Okay.
worked to advocate. We've gotten a lot of letters of support from different groups. One that comes to mind is like Game High, who's, written letters of support locally and nationally. We also have a bunch of states that are coming together to write letters of support. There's a lot of support coming from different governors' offices across the country as they advocate for Head Start as well.
Okay,
So it's been a very large push. I was just at the National Head Start Conference in Columbus, and they were reporting out like over 300,000 letters of support are pouring into Congress. So we feel that the strong support has helped,
okay, that's great, thank you.
action.
And I do want to say that there is a community of practice of kind of boards like ours. And so I participated in them. I've been participating in the winter, it was at 8 a.m. and now it's like at 7 a.m. So I have my camera off because I am like barely functioning, you guys. But anyway, I asked them, and there weren't that many people in that particular session, if any of these boards or councils had written letters of support. And what came out was that, basically if they were in a state whose administration was aligned with the federal administration, they were kind of people's jobs, I could sense that people felt their jobs were on the line, and they had to kind of lay low. Because it's kind of like you stick your head out, boom, you can get, whatever. So, I mean, it was very sobering. It was, I felt very grateful that we're in a state that does support children and families, and our congressional delegation supports that. But it's very complicated. So, and as Jordan had also brought up, we don't, right now, I mean, we don't know what's happening in the future. I think in proposing that at our level, at the state board, we start thinking ahead that if there are cuts that come down, how do we help policymakers prioritize which programs need to have fun, how do we help make, build that picture of what is happening, what is needed, because we have Department of Human Services, big chunks of money that, currently are okay. We have Department of Health that has all the early intervention and special education stuff is very concerning. So we have in our board, our partners that may have their funding also under question. So at our level, I think we can devote board time and thought. So, your thinking is going to be very important to how we help prioritize. And again, it'll go back to that. It's proposed mixed delivery system policy, which I promised to work on. It's on my computer. I have the tab of, and at least have a draft and find some way to get other people to vet it, work on it so that we can eventually adopt a policy. But that's kind of where I'm thinking right now. But if anybody has ideas on ways that the board can state support for Head Start, we're doing it now, okay? In a public meeting, we support Head Start and Early Head Start. We also support the other federally funded programs like Medicaid and, all these programs that really help our Keiki and their Ohana. So, and childcare development block grant, there's so much. So, I'm opening the discussion on what the board can give support or state support Head Start and other federally funded programs. If anybody has any innovative ideas, or if you want information on ways to advocate, if you don't get those emails, like sometimes, you sign on to one thing and you're gonna get a million emails from other associated organizations, but if you're interested, I can let you know about some that I've signed on to just as an individual, not as the chair, just as me, just me. I can let you know, but any other ideas? What do you guys think?
So Elaine, this is Keiko, Department of Health. So I appreciate that sentiment because we realize it's not just the learning, it's the health, it's the safety, the food security, all of the different pieces that go into an early learning system. Especially if we want to see good outcomes for children and families. So actually, 0 to 3, the national organization 0 to 3, they do their Strolling Thunder event where they take families to meet their congressional delegation. And they came up with a really nice talking point papers. So we can forward it to you. It talks about all the different impacts of the different programs and services. So for example, about MedQuest or our Medicaid, which services about 40%, 40 to 60% of our children and families with health insurance. So, or also our SNAP benefits, which again helps with the food security. There's other programs and services that may be impacted, as across the board. So I'll just share with you and you can share with the.
Okay, and then I'm gonna check in with my Attorney General there about, because I know I cannot email to everybody, but maybe I'm thinking that I put that kind of thing and maybe a compilation of things in our board meeting material so that it's public. And I'll check in, is that okay? Or I'll check in with you guys. So, thank you.
But I appreciate your sentiment about recognizing that there's all different types of funding. So it's not just a Head Start, although we try to support all that we can.
I mean, and Medicaid is really on the chopping block, right? It's. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments? From the board? Any comments from the public? Oh. I don't see anything in chat. Man, we went from like running overtime to, holy cow, I'm like, I still have time. What can we talk about? Can't talk about anything else. Okay, so review agenda outcomes. So we did, the only vote we took was on the minutes. And then, but we had a lot of good information, good thought-provoking questions that we can continue to consider as we move forward. So that's the agenda outcomes. Any announcements? I actually have an announcement. Okay, so just to let you guys know, I retired from UH Maui College in 2019. And I was a early childhood program coordinator there for, I don't know, way too long. Anyway, but right now, early childhood education, the current coordinator, Julie Powers, shared with me the other day that the college she doesn't know where the money came from, okay? So I don't know where the money came from, but for the next 2 years at Maui College, if someone is an early childhood major that's seeking a certificate or a degree, they can get free tuition and textbooks. this for 1 year, fall 2025 and spring 2026. And so already they have registration, early registration open for fall, and already they have more students registered in their intro classes than they have had for a couple of years. So it's making an impact. And textbooks. She was telling me that 4 of her students in a class she had last semester did not pass a class, and they never bought the books. Because for some people, going to college is a whole new culture. It's a whole new culture. I mean, college has its own culture. And if you went to public school and you were always given your books, it's kind of like, why I gotta buy my book, so anyway, so having free books, she realized, is really crucial. Of course, the next step is to get them to read, which is why we would give quizzes, because otherwise they don't read their books. But anyway, that's something that's happening. And again, there's so many things happening. So I shared that with Ian, who is our workforce person, and there are many things that are happening across the state. And again, we've got to think collectively about what's the best way to channel that information so we have that big picture. And then Lieutenant Governor is having a press conference since Tuesday to celebrate Latinos. The legislature approved the funding for 50 new classrooms, EOEL classrooms, in the next biennium, so 25 this year and 25 next year. So Lieutenant Governor is doing that next Tuesday. And any other announcements from board members? Any announcements from members of the public? Mahalo again to Christina and Lynette and Jennifer this month. And I wanted to share this quote that one of my former students had written down when I asked about something in class. And she said, on advocacy, this was about advocacy. And she said, I think of having gone through or experienced something that awakened your spirit. And then you have that desire to share this with others. And I thought that is such a cool way to look at advocacy. So I want to share that with you. But if there are no further announcements, wow, we're adjourning at, 3:37. Mahalo for coming, everyone. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.